normally every year. I'm still requesting that, although in my synopsis or report, whatever you want to call it, that we'll talk about in a little while, I do talk about that increase a little bit more. The biggest changes in the increase in our budget is mostly in salary. The whole budget shows a 3.8% increase, and most of that really is in salary. And then there's also a way in the budget, and then we'll go through that a little bit too, about the way we're changing some of the building allocation funding. So I'm on page 138. And this right away goes right to what I was just talking about, the buildings and grounds staff. You can see that in past years, it was quite a bit less than it is now proposed for FY25. And that's just because of, one is we've got 2 full-time staff members now. We are looking for a third one, or hope to be looking for a third one. So that's where a lot of that change is coming from. And some of theirs came back in here because of the way we did the building change, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I hope so. Otherwise, that one you just hired is really expensive.
Yeah.
Then, you know, the other large items on that, in that whole area have to do with things that we have no real control over. Property and casualty insurance, because everything that was associated with buildings came back into this budget. Maintenance is the other really large one, jump there, but once again, same issue, same reason.
What's covered under maintenance?
What's that?
What is covered under maintenance? A lot of fuel costs?
No, the fuels are split up. Maintenance is just that, painting, you know, anything like that we come up with. We found some rot in back of the old brick church that we just replaced that we weren't, you know, didn't realize was going to be gone. Any of those kind of things did.
But is it like a contractor or is it like the paint?
By us.
So it's the materials for maintenance
Yep,
because the staff is up. Yeah.
yep.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't mean we can't go to, from time to time, we do use, I guess I should clarify that. For a lot of the painting on the outside of the buildings, every summer, we do have a contractor come in and help do the touching up, especially if it's higher up stuff. So,
Okay.
So can I just talk a little bit more in detail about the change we made this year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for property casualty maintenance, utilities, we used to, for these 2 buildings, so the annex and here, we used to allocate those sort of arbitrarily between planning and zoning, public works, finance, clerk, and manager. And I'm like, this is, you know, and then Kim would get an invoice and split it 5 ways. And I'm like,
Oh, jeez.
just crazy.
Some for like $10.
Yeah. So we brought those back all into buildings and grounds. And then for the staff, we also used to allocate part of their wages out to library because they do things for the library and for the police department. So their wages also that were allocated to those 2 departments came back in. So now everything is in a buildings and grounds department and no more allocation, which will save lots of time.
well, it will for some people, because we're still gonna have to allocate into the different pots what maintenance is being done on what building, where now we could have gone back and looked at those. So,
Gonna
so,
continue
so
separate
there,
GL accounts.
so there is, that's fine, because we're gonna have this asset management program that we'll talk about in a little while too, even though buildings weren't gonna be in there initially, but that was one of the ways we could track what went to what building by just looking back at
Oh,
what it got
the
coded to.
department, yeah.
So, anyway, not a big deal, just, so, then as we go down the list, the next, and it's not really that large, but I guess that's a matter of opinion. Salaries administration, $6,000 up. Road maintenance salary, excuse me, pretty self-explanatory, that's what that's for, but, that's up but not much more than it really has been in past years. Benefits. That's property and casualty insurance again. The one that is down that, when I started reviewing this yesterday and was going down through it and paying more attention and should have given it more attention before this was the salt budget. And Eric has assured me that he's going to put that back on a list, so that gets back to $145,000.
Yeah, I
A
made
little
it,
miscommunication, so.
yeah, I made an entry error. It should be 145.
Because that is one line that we don't change, just because we never know what the price is what's happening price-wise, what the weather's going to be like. We've been holding that number for years. Sand up a little bit. That just has to do with the cost of material. There's the 520 down on the retreatment that I said earlier that I had asked for. The 10,000 that we get every year to keep the retreatment line going. And that's the biggest, I mean, that's really it in Public Works. For any major changes, besides going through and looking at capital. So,
The on-call wages, is that somebody, what are on-call wages?
so on call, we have changed that. That changed this last year. Water and sewer have always had an on-call person, but now highway has an on-call person as well in the summertime. And I'd have to get the exact dates again. I think it's November 15th to May 15th or something like that. We have 2 people on call on highway. And in the rest of the year, we have 1 person on call on highway, besides myself and Christine, who's are always on call anyway. Just to make sure, our guys are very good. They get in the wintertime that, you know, that's what they're here for. But they're not paid to sit at home, wait for the phone to ring either. So we've done this to make sure that we can always get hold of, you know, tomorrow night, hopefully isn't an example, but might very well be an example that we do start to get a lot of this rain or whatever, and we need to get hold of a couple guys. Those 2 will be here without a doubt. And then the other ones are, like I said, they're all very good. I'm sure that we can get hold of them if we need to, especially if they know the snow is coming. But that was the whole idea behind it, so we know we could always get hold of people.
So are these not our full-time employees, or are these extra salaries?
Oh,
for
no,
our
they're
full-time?
full-time employees.
So it's extra funding for full-time employees to come in on,
For the inconvenience of actually being on call, saying I will be there,
yeah, okay.
so.
Yeah, for example, not going out of town that weekend or something like that. Like more like the summertime. In the winter, we know people know they need to potentially get called in, but gives us that. I think we've had incidents before, like a tree down or something like that. And okay, who can we get to come in from Public Works? And now we have one person who's going to know, okay, I need to be available while I'm on this on-call week or something like that.
Good, okay.
Once again, like I said, I'm sorry.
We pay a stormwater fee for the roads to the
Oh,
state.
yeah. Oh, to ourselves.
Stormwater utility.
If we're gonna charge everybody else for their impervious, we have to charge ourselves to make it, be honest.
It's the same as the quarterly payments we make.
Same as the payments you make, Mike. Yes.
Glad you're feeling the pain too.
So yes, that is exactly what that is for. Any other questions on the general fund in general?
I would just add the additional position addition. I didn't mean for that to rhyme. At the beginning, you know, we talked about the police as well. We'll talk about the HR director. The 4th one there is to take the regular part-time buildings and grounds position, the 27 hours per week, and elevate that to a full-time
I'm sorry, I should have
position.
explained that.
I'll just mention that now as we're talking about operating.
That's an impossibility. We have not had any luck filling that part-time position. I mean, it's hard enough to get people full-time. There just aren't the people out there that want to do this kind of thing.
we see kind of a future trajectory for the buildings and ground staff to expand that, probably up to 4 or 5 folks full-time, with some help in parks as well. But Bruce and I talked about eventually having kind of a supervisor position for buildings and grounds that would really oversee all the maintenance, all the contracts, coordination for all our buildings. I think at that point too, trying to bring in-house more janitorial work. We contracted out for a couple buildings. We don't have the staff capacity to do that now, but kind of creating a true buildings and grounds division of management here for us.
So with that said, this last summer, we were so short of people, and I know Todd's after me, that, and I've seen it in the writing somewhere to you guys, and you probably all know it anyway, that Todd was your other person over there every day working instead of, so good for him for juggling both things, but, you know, that was what happened there. And that goes back to talking about snow plowing, which I would have gotten into a little bit later, but taking on all the sidewalks is fine. We said we would do that, but we also thought we'd have 2.5 people to do that. And we only have 2 people to do that. So I'm letting you all know so that when your phone starts ringing after the first 1 or 2 storms and we haven't gotten all the sidewalks cleared, and just like that, that's the reason. We will get them cleared, but it's going to take a little bit longer. And I give them Eric's number anyway. So capital,
What page do we go to?
my first one in capital is page 25. I'm just going to go through the capital one. And actually, it's not really even page 25 because there's nothing underneath the manager for that side for 25. That was the old schoolhouse.
We've got 24 actually, Bruce, for the brick church.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Oh, somehow I ended up 225.
Here you go.
I got it. Oh,
I got it.
right here, yeah. Fire protection, old brick church, page 24. This is for just what it is talking about, which is actually being designed right now, is for a fire suppression system to go in the old brick church. Like I said, it's under design right now, so we don't really know what the full cost is going to be. It was $270 in 2019 dollars. We raised it to 300,000 but you know, we were thinking the parking lot, which we're going to talk about too, was only going to be a couple $100,000, and it's like 4 times as much as we thought it was going to be. So we don't know what the exact number is for this project yet, but that is in the capital there for $300,000 at this point.
I put it in your ARPA report as potential ARPA funds for that. It could certainly be rolled into a bond as well, as we talked about the parking lot for both of those projects. We should have the final number by early January to help put those final decisions for the board.
And 25 we just did, which is really has nothing to find with it. 26 is what I was just talking about, the town hall parking lot. This number in here is the latest and greatest estimate from the engineers that have just done the design for the parking lot. Some of the drivers to this, the drivers like everything else, just the cost of things, but also starting to look at putting in EV chargers and those kind of things as well. So $860,000, which would actually add quite a bit of parking spaces out back though as well. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but I want to say 20 or 30, just
Yeah, 38.
38 in here, okay.
Sausage. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
structured
38 new parking spaces.
I structured this to, at the beginning of your capital budget, you have kind of an overall summary of projects for the next fiscal year and the funding sources. So for that 860 in the draft, I think I did a couple $100,000 from ARPA and then bonding for the balance. I didn't include it as part of the budget, but we're going to apply for a grant from the Downtown Transportation Program that will be available in January. As a designated village center, we've never taken advantage of this funding. So those grants could be up to $200,000. We think this project's a good candidate. We'll certainly apply for that. No guarantee. So I don't think we'd hear on that till after town meeting day. So if the board decides to go forward with this project, conceivably there may be part of a bond as part of this, unless you funded it all with ARPA. So we would likely need bonding authority for the full balance. And then if we got the grant when we went to bond sale, we could decrease the size of the bond sale if we got the grant, for example, or cancel that out with the ARPA funding for something else.
What's the driver for more parking spots? I rarely see it full, so.
Even more the history than I do, Bruce.
What's that?
For the parking capacity back there, a part of it,
So you're right and wrong. I mean,
As usual.
you don't see it full very often.
Yeah.
But there are times where it really does get full, and a lot of it, we have to remember, has to go along with what's going on next door to National Guard, and if they end up having some of that going on at the same time as us, we share that parking. For those that don't know, the first parking lot beside the town hall annex building belongs to the state and federal government. We're only about a foot outside of that building for our property line. So the only parking we're talking about that really is controlled by the town is this limited parking out back here. So it doesn't once again, it doesn't happen a lot, but it's one of those things that as other departments get larger ourselves, including people here in town hall or the police department, we're going to need more parking just for employees, let alone people coming here for business.
there's some big issues too. You'll see that kind of dip in the
Oh,
middle
yeah.
where we have ice that ponds. We've had, since I've been here, at least 3 people, including myself, that slipped on the ice on their way into work. The lighting's very bad at night too, employee safety issue. We put a light on the garage out back a couple of years ago to help with that a little bit, but this project would include lighting in the parking lot to help our staff and visitors be able to see better at night out there too.
Yeah, this is an entire tear up of this parking lot out back. It's not just repaving it, it's going right down and removing. The reason for the dip and the hump is there's drain pipes underneath there that just haven't been taken care of or weren't installed correctly. So it's not just a matter of paving and doing some striping, it's a total rebuild.
Can't use any transportation impact fees? I mean,
See, for something like
What about it?
this, I'd have to think. I don't believe this was a project we had on our original transportation impact fee project list. I'll have to look at that and see.
The next one is this building contingency fund, which is just what it says. This is just money being put aside in case something happens that we're not expecting to happen. An AC unit goes, a boiler goes, something like that. So that we have a fund somewhere that can be used, and this is for just about any of the buildings. $33 is just my narrative, or a narrative that talks a little bit about what we're doing, the current facilities, miles of road, sidewalk. Muddy Brook, yeah, that down there. Most of this we're going to go over a little bit more then too as we go through the report I gave you all. Yeah, so I'd just as soon hold off on most of that if I can, but it's doing the same thing we've been doing, getting rid of the ash trees, doing in the sidewalk construction, which we'll talk about a little bit more, and the Trader Lane project, which we'll talk about a little bit more as we go along, if that's all right. 35 is the next actual capital that we're putting money in 25. And this is just for what it shows at the top, different projects that come up and come along. One of the things that we're starting to get a little bit more pressure to do is more rapid flash beacons around town at different locations, and this would be one of those places where we could, if we got into starting to do more of those, we could take money out of here to do it, along with some of the other projects that you can see that have been done in the past.
Those were a big request for the ARP funds.
Rapid flash beacons?
Crosswalks.
Like what we have out front here. From
Oh, right, yeah, the pedestrian crossing.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Now I'm at page 72, our large highway truck rotational.
Hang on, I gotta get there. Okay, I'm ready.
Large highway truck rotational is higher in 2025. That's because we have 2 trucks to replace and then still have some money left over to keep the equipment fund balance, so we don't have to ask for quite so much money. This is one of the places we are going to start seeing large increases anyway as we go forward. Some of the reason is trying to modernize, although we're pretty modern as it is actually with our trucks, but there are some new techniques and equipment out there that can help with snow plowing, and also then ends up with reductions of salt, which are or is a major item that we're going to have to deal with, how we can start reducing the use of salt more and more. Trucks are getting back on a little bit quicker. We just got one of our new ones, but that was last year's truck. It took us this long to get it. It usually takes us 7 or 8 months to get a truck. This one took over a year. The one that we have out now, another one we have out right now that we're being told we'll probably see it in June of next year. So it's still a little bit longer, but things seem to be catching up finally. 2 pickup trucks Todd and I have been waiting for a long time. So just pickup trucks. We couldn't even get those. We got a notice the other day that said they're finally in production. So, I mean, we could go down and buy one off the lot. We wanted to pay another $20,000 or $30,000 over what the town can get it for through the state contract. So we're a little bit of that mercy. Anyway, I just tell you that to let you know that things seem to be catching up in that regard.
And this is one I mentioned for the board, with especially the 2 trucks this year, that there's I suggested additional ARPA funds to help for that second truck. And I think I pulled a little bit of fund balance here too to get to the $340,000 requests. Certainly higher this year for all those factors.
So there's a couple reasons why that is like that, because we do very diligently go through every year and say, this is the truck that's being replaced. We know what's going to be replaced. You know, this is what we've been getting for trade-in value or resale. And what happened was with COVID and everything else that happened, everything just jumped so much on us that it really just threw our whole savings out of whack. Because we've been trying to put money aside ever since we bought the 8th truck, so that when we got to this point, we wouldn't have this problem. But the next one's page 73, large highway equipment. Just what it says, it's all of our bigger equipment. Asking for money in 25, but there's nothing to be replaced in 25. But we have to keep building that so that when the other costs do come up, the next real replacement item is in 26. And that's not for a new trackless. I mean, an additional trackless. That's to replace the one that we have now. It's just getting to the end of its life. So yeah, that's what that is. And then one we just talked about a little bit was the highway pickup replacement. There's 3 of them in here. And once again, it's just to keep that item up so that as we buy, we're not coming in and asking for a lot of money all in one shot. buildings and facility mower, just what it is. It's for the mowers that they use out back here. One's a tractor and one's a zero-turn mower. We are actually even looking for a grant that's being worked on where we may be getting an electric zero-turn mower, which is really kind of, we tried 3 different kinds, settled on one that we think will be the best one for us. One of them was just deadly. I mean, it was just incredible to me. The thing would go so fast. I mean, it was just like, really, it was just stupid fast. It was like driving an F1 car. I mean, it was like, really? So we ruled that one out just from a safety. But anyway, so Todd and I are both looking at maybe through this grant that Melinda's been working on, getting an electric zero turn. And if that happens this year, we may not have to replace the zero turn that we're using right now. And it would be great to have that overlap so that we can see whether the battery one is actually going to do what we want it to do for a year before we say, okay, we don't need to use that anymore. So in a way, this is really a good thing. Still want to carry the money here just in case it doesn't turn out the way we were hoping.
And those funds, we have them. It's a federal earmark, $75,000 is given to the top 10 most populous communities in the state. I think Senator Sanders secured that earmark. So Melinda's taking the lead in looking at possible projects. So certainly the top of our list is to add those 2 electric mowers. And then we're thinking about a electric vehicle that's kind of a shared fleet vehicle for staff, where someone needs to go to a training down in Montpelier, someone needs to do an inspection from the assessor's office or the zoning office. They hop in the EV instead of taking their personal vehicle, reimbursed for mileage, that type of thing.
Excuse me, the next one's page 76, signal replacements. This is just a capital item to keep upgrading our signals that we own that are all on Marshall Avenue. This one comes back to the same issue as we're having with line striping anymore. There's only one person in the state of Vermont working on signals anymore besides the state themselves. South Burlington has a technician that works for them, but there used to be 2 companies around doing this kind of work. And once again, now we're down to 1. And even that one is down to 1 employee in the Northeast, besides the people that own the company. So it's becoming a real challenge. So it's even more important that we keep this up. We actually have some work out for them right now that they're supposed to do for us that I've been trying to get them here to get done. But that's just the reality we're in. Same way with, I don't know if anybody noticed, but we had guardrails that were damaged for, I don't know, 7-8 months. They just got fixed yesterday. Once again, because there's only one company around doing that kind of work. So besides having a shortage of people, we're starting to have a shortage of companies that are doing the work that we need to get done. So 77 is, there's no money in there for winter parking ban. We're just carrying that. Line painting and marking machine, that's just to keep money in there so that we need to replace the one that we just purchased a year ago, which worked out really well. I was very surprised and pleased at the efforts and what the guys were able to get done over this year. I don't think our town's ever looked better as far as markings are concerned on maybe some edge lines, but as far as turns and stop signs and all that good stuff. Some of that goes back to the fact that Carl, our new highway supervisor, grandfather was the one that owned Scott's line striping. So he kind of grew up whether he wanted to or not. So that helped us out with that.
But we don't do Route 2, right? That's a state road.
State, Route 2 and 2A are state of Vermont. So that's our capital as a whole. If you don't mind, I'd like to talk about I call it a brief report, whatever you'd like. I tried to give you a background, some information as to all what's going on in Public Works, certainly not a full report by any means. But Eric had said there were some questions, so we went, did a little looking around. And it just happened that the American Society for Civil Engineers had just done a report for Vermont, looking at Vermont's infrastructure. He earned and gave Vermont a grade of C, which you'd actually be surprised in the public works industry, even in traffics and everything else. If you get a C, you're actually really good. Because, you know, you don't get A's and B's very much. Besides the fact, didn't get much anyway. No, C is actually very good. What I was surprised about when I looked at this is that they didn't look at pedestrian issues. So I tried to give you a little bit of update on where we're at with our pedestrian facilities, including some of the places where there might be some connections that still have to happen. You all know that unfortunately things move at a snail's pace, but we have two projects out there right now that the Vermont 2A disconnect from Knight Lane to Beaudry Lane was moving along really quite well. And then it ended up going back to a NEPA, which is a National Environmental Protection Act, which is a death nail to projects. It just slows them down. But somebody hit us for archaeological, I think, even though most of it was already been disturbed and everything else. Anyway, we're through most of that hurdle, we believe, so we should see that project in another year or so getting constructed. And that'll take care of that disconnect. And when that happens, you'll be able to go from the new park and ride all the way to Essex on rec or sidewalk of some sort, which will be good, because then that'll also then get you to Industrial Ave, which would get you to South Burlington, except for a section on Industrial Ave, which we were just got a grant for to take it from where the state just stopped the project up by Avenue A. We'll get from Avenue A to Whitecaps. So we'll still have a little space in between there up to Rossignol Park that we'll have to find funding for. But that would then make you that connection all the way around too, except for the fact that when you get to Muddy Brook on Williston Road, you're not going to go anywhere because South Burlington doesn't have sidewalk on their side. But at least now we can say it's their fault. So the other one then that's really a problem is coming over Muddy Brook on the other side, Shunpike and Marshall Avenue, where there's in that case, South Burlington does have path all the way down to there. We have some sidewalk on our side now. Doesn't go very far up Marshall Ave to the Shunpike intersection. Shunpike is getting built out. As it's being built out, everybody's had to put in sidewalks. So we have lots of sections in there that now have to get connected together. One of the things we have tried very hard to do is build the section up Marshall Ave, between Shunpike and South Burnell Road. And I don't think any of us will ever see that. We've applied twice, we've been shot down twice, and it's all because of wetlands. Today, that road would have never gotten built. A lot of roads wouldn't have gotten built, but particularly that one would have never gotten built because it went right through the middle of the wetlands. So they're really digging their heels in on that one. So the better thought is, so that we can still have that connection, is to continue with the one on Shunpike Road, push that one harder, because then you get Shunpike to Marshall Ave to South Burlington. When you go the other way up Shunpike, you get to South Burnell Road, which already has sidewalk, and that gets you connected. You can go anywhere then. You can go to Tap Corners, you can go to Walmart, or all those areas up in there too.
So wait, I'm sorry. So Shunpike you can put sidewalks on, but Marshall, is that what you're saying? When you said between Shunpike and
South Brownell.
South Brownell, you mean along Marshall? Is that Marshall Ave still up there?
Nope, Shunpike, on Shunpike itself.
That's right. So,
Yeah, from Marshall Ave
yep,
to South Brownell Road
Right.
along Shunpike itself.
you can't build there because of wetlands.
No,
Or you
that's the
can't.
section that is being built.
That's what I was confused. What,
It's the section from Shunpike to South Brownell on Marshall Ave.
right, okay. That's why I was at the,
we're having a real hard time. I mean, I'm not saying you can never do it, but it will be very expensive because it probably would mean doing a boardwalk if you're even allowed to do that. So,
It's not very far either, is it? Shunpike, the south, the Marshall?
no, it's not far.
I thought they kind of intersected.
Yeah, no, it definitely would take some work and everything, but that Shunpike, because of the Robert property was that large stretch of wood line that was there that went from Shunpike to Williston Road where U-Haul is built now and all that other stuff is being built out. As it's been getting built out on the Shunpike side, they've been made to put in sidewalk in front of all those parcels. But there's still gonna be some sections there that will have to be
oh, look at this.
built
We got-
either by us or waiting for somebody else to come in to, there it's,
You can't be on the select board if you haven't lived here for 20 years.
There's the-
You know all these roads.
Yeah, see, Shunpike goes, I thought, right to Marshall Avenue right there, but
On the South Burlington end here. So right near the Muddy Brook Bridge, Bruce, right
yeah,
there,
that's the Muddy Brook Bridge, that's Shunpike right there.
right here.
So you could build sidewalks on Shunpike, but you can't.
When you get into here,
Right,
It's up, nope, go bring up Marshall Ave, a little bit more, it's right there.
Right
That-
here.
All that wood
oh,
the curve.
right through there.
yeah.
oh,
That's some kind of special wetlands with all kinds of good stuff and, we've been shot down, like I said, we've worked twice, we tried to get funding for that. So I'm not saying we should give up on that idea, but I would say we would get more bang for our buck and probably have it happen faster if we're trying to make connections to other communities to continue on the Shunpike.
like Leroy Road or something.
What's that?
Like Leroy Road or something, I don't know.
Yeah, Leroy Road's right there. Yeah. I mean, you could do that too, but then that's just going, it's the same thing as just going up Shunpike Road. You could go up Marshall Ave to Leroy over Leroy and then, but I don't see, like I said, as far as right now to actually make the connection, Shunpike's a much quicker. So, that's just going over.
Oh, thank you.
That's just going over the pedestrian facilities and what's there or not there and what we're taking care of. 5 vehicle bridges that are mostly inspected by the state of Vermont. Ours are all in pretty good shape. 3 of the 5 are actually co-owned, the South Burlington or Essex, which is a good thing. Probably the next bridge we're looking at, having to do anything really to, is the Industrial Ave Bridge. And that's more because it'll be structurally deficient rather than, not structurally deficient, functionally deficient rather than structurally deficient, just because of what's happening along Industrial Avenue. We have 3 pedestrian bridges. They are just inspected by myself or actually I took Andrew with me this year just to go take a look underneath, see if there's any real problems. And our pedestrian bridges are in pretty good shape, plus they're still fairly new, especially our largest one, which is the one over on Beaudry Lane, or off Beaudry Lane. Williston Stormwater, responsible for quite a bit. I'm not gonna go over every little thing there, but once again, this was mostly just to give you guys an idea of what we do or don't do, or what's going on out there, and what really costs are looking like. This one, as we go down into the whole point of this to start with was just to say this is what we really ought to spend ARPA money on. But once again, I wanted to give you an idea of what's going on. Talk about the catch bases, the fact that we're in charge of 18 stormwater ponds right now. We have the PCP plan out there, phosphorus control plan, and we still have our flow restoration plan, and what those kind of projects are looking like. We have 75.85 miles of road. That's going to change in 2 years when we add 3 more miles with what's on the books now, supposedly to get built. 10 of them are gravel. Gravels have received a lot of work lately, which has been a good thing, mostly because of the way they're connected, hydraulically connected. We've been able to get a lot of money from other places to help take care of that. Williston Water, and sewer, water system, we purchased all our water. Upgrade in 1968. Part of that upgrade made us more responsible for things. We're split into 2 service areas. What that means is the high side is basically from Taft Corners east. And that just means that the pressures in that part of this line are from the tanks. From there west is the pressure that's coming right out of the Champlain Water District. So that's why we call it, it's called the low and high side. Both of them cost us the same amount of money if something goes wrong, but anyway, you know, you can just look through there and see the number of valves and everything that they really have going on. Champlain, yeah, okay, so, oh, one of these, because it's on this, still on the ARPA list, is the Champlain water line plans are all but done. And we could go to construction or go to bid at the end of January. And that was approved in last year's capital funding for $300,000 out of the water fund. I know Eric has talked a little bit more about some of that coming from ARPA, but if we're gonna make that decision, it has to be made, 'cause we're ready to go to bid on that. Let's see, then the sewer system, just talking about, you know, everything the sewer department has and what we're responsible for, just to help give you an idea as far as that's concerned. Talked about energy a little bit. One of the big things we have, and I've said it before, is we've had multiple inventories and data in all kinds of different locations. That's all getting put together right now. I've been working very hard on that, and by March, hopefully we'll have a very good asset management program that'll allow us to have all those things in one spot. And when we're out working on things, be able to put that data in there real time. Will also help us with future planning and for budgets as well. So all of that, once again, was mostly just to give you all some idea of what it is we do. And now get down to ARPA and what Public Works feels like would be the best use of money from our perspective. So, but real quickly, the total estimated cost for projects on the updated list exceeds $9 million plus. And that's without looking at everything. So, the priority project, once again, I wrote right in here, has changed a little bit. I've done two memos before on ARPA funding. The one project that we're saying we believe would be the best use of ARPA funds right now would be to replace the twin culverts on Talcott Road that are just north of the fire department. There's two twins, 4 culverts on Talcott Road. One was replaced in 2013 after the flooding and got damaged, and the state gave us emergency funding to replace that one. But as part of that, would not allow us to touch the one next to it. Certainly would have made sense to replace them both, but we weren't allowed. So we replaced the one that got damaged. A few years later, the one next to it started getting real bad, showing some damage. So we spent some more money there and made that one in good shape, actually. Has a new concrete bottom and sides in it. So those two should last for quite a while. Their sisters, the other twins, are down by the fire station. They're showing the same deterioration that the ones up above showed, where they're rotting out in the bottom. And what caused part of the problem, the other ones, was one, the flood, just too much water got underneath it, lifted the bottom, destroyed that culvert. The other one was freezing. Frost got underneath it, lifted the bottom, and caused the problem there. So even though we've been band-aiding the two down by the fire department, and when I say band-aiding, I mean bags of concrete carried down into there and trying to put things back together, they need to be replaced within the next few years, if not even right now. The water's high, and I'm letting it stay high. The water's high because of the beaver dam. And I'm sitting here saying this where I'm being recorded and everything. We're leaving that water high right now. Hopefully we don't get it to freeze and get a frost underneath those pipes and lift them. So I'm trying to leave that water a little bit deeper in there right now. So anyway, that was part of the report that we had done at one point, and the number to replace those in 2019 dollars was $1 million. So you can see that if they get wiped out and we have to do it as an emergency, it's going to be quite a bit of money, besides the fact that we close the road again, which serves a school. People weren't happy about it the last 2 times. I don't blame them. And that's okay, we're big boys. We can take the heat, but I just as soon not do it. If we could schedule that, it would be much better. And the replacement is a concrete bridge, either a bridge or a concrete box structure. No more corrugated pipes of that size in the ground. The next projects that are, I say are equally as important, because they actually are, is the River Cove Pump Station and upgrades to the industrial outforce main. The industrial outforce main is being designed as we speak, but it's still not, it's in a capital for 27. The third pump at River Cove would be nice to have, and if we could use money to do that one now, it would get us somewhat back onto our cycle where we're trying to do every pump station every 20 years. We have 10 pump stations, so every other year we should be doing a pump station. We got backed up, and sooner or later we won't have to be saying this anymore, but it was COVID, put us behind on that. And that's another place where we're just not finding people that want to do that kind of work anymore. It's just incredible. What'll happen is it'll get to the price where it's expensive, so expensive that people will finally start jumping back into but that's what's going to happen. So that's just a list of where we think the Trader Lane project under design. Eric knows very well what's going on with that because he's part of everything that's going on with it. It is under design right now. We're having another meeting in a week or 2. We should start to see the actual layout and see some draft plans dealing with the stormwater and stuff there. But that price, that cost is obviously going to have gone up too. The installation of the fire suppression system in the old brick church, actively being designed. Already talked about it a little bit, so you guys know about that. And another one that would be really helpful, and I know would save on man hours, is if we were able to do our meter reading all by drive-by download, and or actually antennas that can bring it all right to Kim's office. So we don't have to have people out physically reading meters 4 times a year, 4 of them doing that. Most of the time of the year it's not too bad, but we have had a few winters where we can't even get the meters to read them. And then you have to estimate them, and then they're not right, and the next time comes around. And so anyway, it would just be another good use of ARPA funds from Public Works. And I did still attach the list that I had given you all before, updated a little bit. And that's it. Thank you all, and on behalf of Public Works, thank you for all your support. You guys appreciate it. And I know they're all having fun today because they know tomorrow they may not be able to.
Now, the Muddy Brook on Marshall Avenue, that was a bridge right there, correct? Was that a concrete bridge that they
No,
replaced?
it's not a bridge. It's a bottomless concrete arch, basically, for lack of a better term. It's not a bridge. Concrete box.
That's something similar to what you're looking at on South Talcott Road, Twin Culvert?
Talcott Road, the report called for just a bridge, period, Mike. So not concrete going down to the bottom. Abutments, obviously, but down a steel bridge or whatever on top. Muddy Brook is a actual concrete structure that goes all the way up. And the top then becomes part of the bridge deck.
There were some good pictures of that were online somewhere, and that shows the construction of that. Quite fascinating.
Not the same as a bridge. A bridge has abutments, obviously, concrete abutments to help hold it up, and the span goes over it. This is actually a concrete structure that's down in the ground with no bottom. So in a way, it's a bridge, but it's just not called. It's just not called a bridge. A bridge you can go in. A bridge you can go in and pick the bridge up or replace steel or whatever. You're not going to do that on this concrete structure. That is one whole piece. Put it in pieces, but now it's one whole piece.
Okay. Yeah, I guess you have to look at both of them to see what the difference is, you know, I can't picture it in my mind, I've never seen it.
No, we would certainly, if that was the way, and that's the way we'd like to see this go, is it would certainly be looked at again to see what kind of structure makes the most sense. I don't want any bridges. We don't want any bridges. Bridges are a pain in the butt. But if it's a bridge or the concrete structure, and the concrete structure is 1.5 times as much or something, then, you know, you have to look at it from, so yeah, I would tell you right now, we don't ever want another bridge.
Sounds like the culverts can be a pain in the butt too, though.
The culvert's a pain in the butt, more so. I'll take a bridge over culverts. The culverts are just wearing out. Old galvanized metal, they're just wearing out.
Can't go with plastic on them,
Not that size.
not that size.
I don't put, just so you know, we, not I, we don't put in any metal pipe unless it comes down to the fact that we just can't get it in plastic that size.
What's the
And
max?
today you use aluminum pipe. Don't even go with corrugated steel, use aluminized pipe. Lasts longer, it's just as strong. Oh, aluminum, it's just as strong, so.
Pickup truck bed.
What's that?
Your pickup trucks, some of them now are aluminum.
Yeah, so. Anyway, it took longer than Todd's sitting back here waiting, so.
But are there other questions for Bruce before?
My question is actually for you, Eric. Is the ARPA, I'm looking at the ARPA project select board, the sheet now, it doesn't look like the Talcott project is reflected in there.
Yeah, so that's something new as Bruce updated this the
Yeah.
last couple of weeks. So I think on that list I'd put,
There's a couple water and sewer,
Yeah.
but I don't see that particular one. I'm just,
I took those from the last list. So
Yeah.
that'd be good to keep in mind as you look at that as well. And Bruce, with that one, $1 million project, what's the likelihood you think of any state money to help?
we would certainly go after, excuse me, bridge and culvert money.
Right.
But that's maybe $250,000. No, we would look for other funding, Eric, but I don't know. It doesn't qualify right now as a bridge, so I don't know that there's bridge money available from the state for it.
No.
Now, if we put in a bridge, does that mean we should be able to get money now? I don't know the answer, but we would certainly explore.
Because part of this stuff with ARPA is always the timing issue. Like commit it this year, but we need to spend it by the end of 26. So it's trying to build that stack of funding for the project.
Any other questions for Bruce?
Hydrant replacements, those are, would you consider those a safety issue? Over 50 years, over 35 years?
Those culverts?
The hydrants, fire hydrants.
No, they're not no, they're still functional. I think the way we're replacing them is fine. If we go and replace a whole bunch of those wholesale, then we're back in the same boat later on, whereas the way we're doing it now, you could just keep rotating them around. It just comes down to the fact that some of them now we can't get parts for. So if something happens and we have to replace it, we end up putting a new or different one there. But I think the way I think the program we have going on right now is the right way to continue with that, Mike. We have over, we're probably at 700 hydrants now. If one's broke, there's one nearby that's going to be fine. And we got so many freaking hydrants, it's not even, so, but that's a whole nother story.
Bruce had that on the ARPA list as, potential to accelerate that program, but it's, what we're doing today isn't a detriment overall. It's some money that could increase that frequency, but I asked Bruce to do this. He wouldn't put that as a top priority of if you're looking at ways to spend ARPA money.
The list I just gave you, it would be our priorities, the top priorities. And I do know that that's changed from the last two memos, like I said, but those would be our priorities.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank
All
you.
right? Thank you all.
Todd, come on down.
Hi,
Hello.
what did you want to start with?
Operating?
Operate? So the operating budget, I don't-
Page 153.
153?
What you looking for, Todd?
Yeah,
Yep.
but, yeah, so just our community services and such, but page 156 is the overall expenditures of the department. So we start on 157 with the actual budget itself. And we see that administrative salaries have increased. The salaries of day camps, we increased that by $2,710. And the reason for that is to stay more competitive and attract qualified people. It's hard to get good people when you're competing with the area businesses that can give $18, $19 to starting ones. So the salary wages will be $13.80 something, I think it is. So we start our younger staff off, our junior staff at like $14 an hour, our counselors at 16, our lead counselors, head counselors at 17, and then administrative staff at 18, 19. So that's that increase. But as we go down through the budget, you'll see that the day camp expenses have been decreased by $7,000. So we've actually taken from what our program does, or busing, or field trips, or anything like that. We looked at that and allocated that money to salaries to increase those, to attract people, better people, more qualified people, and more people. 10 years ago, or actually not even that, prior to COVID, we would have 60 applicants. We're lucky if we got 6 last year, sort of thing. So that's kind of the reason for that. Seasonal salaries are youth sports and such, that stayed the same. Benefits, of course, increase on page 158. Slight increase on training and conferences because we now have 2 people attending some training and conferences. Property and casualty has gone up some, and telephone postage increased by 150. On page 159, again, you can see that the decrease in the day camp expenses. Contracted camp expenses, I'll talk with these together. Contracted camp expenses and contracted program expenses are hard to justify, so we usually take like a 3-year average. Did a 2-year average because 3 years would have put us into COVID, and that was very low. And those fluctuate from year to year, but on those contracted programs, we always are making money. So if a program is $100, we will take 10 of it and pay the instructor. And a contracted program is not a rec program, not a program I'm running, not one that Alex is running, not an employee or a seasonal employee that we're hiring. It's like a contracted instructor comes in and they want $90 a person. So we take 10 and we pay out 90. So we're always going to be in the positive on the revenue side. So if we looked at the revenue, contracted camps went up in revenue, and it's a higher revenue than the expense. And that same thing happens with contracted programs. Contracted camps, we take $25 per camper, and those are administrative fees that we, incur and stuff like that. The recreation programs, so you can see contracted programs decreased by, after I said all that, contracted programs decreased by 5,000 because we've added a line item, and it comes up later, of the rec zone, because we've moved programs out of other areas and we're doing them in the rec zone. So to get a better idea of the revenue coming in, the expenses of the rec zone, it's created its own. So we now have contracted camps, contracted programs, and the rec zone where contracted camps or programs could be held. Sounds all kind of confusing, but ultimately all the revenue that we bring in covers the expenses that we have throughout for programming, and we don't use all of the expense money each year. We have a leftover there every year. So that's on page 160 is where that rec zone is showed up, and we came up with 42,936. A big chunk of that is facility rental at 31,956. Will be a year come March, so we're looking to renew that and talk with them. We have Comcast, some maintenance, and then the program's about 10,000 at this point, and that's guessing because we're always trying to create new programs to offer there. We're currently offering 4 or 5 ongoing programs, some for seniors, some for adults. You drop in, you pay $5 for a senior program, you pay $10 for an adult program, and we're splitting that 80-20 with the instructor. And then we're holding like dog training there, and we just got a couple donations of ping pong tables, so we're looking to start a pick-up ping pong in there, so on and so forth, and going forward with other programs as well. So looking to build that space as much as possible. And we've also opened that space up to rentals for meetings or gatherings that people, may have, like a baby shower or wedding thing or that kind of, those types of rentals.
So programs in the rec zone is the same thing as contracted program expenses, only they're in the rec zone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So 5,000 so I took 5,000
Right.
out of the contracted programs and put it towards that 10,000
Right.
of that's in the rec zone for programming, because we have moved some of those programs over, and we will continue to create new programs and put them in that space as well.
And you're trying to see, you're trying to see if the rec zone is a program that you want the costs associated with that together so you can evaluate it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Who would someone contact if they were interested in renting the rec zone?
Us, the Recreation and Parks Department. We have it on our website for rentals, and people can call us or email us as well.
Okay, I know someone looking for some space.
Oops, gonna up their revenue then.
So that's the operating budget for the recreation services of the department. And on my transmittal sheet, and I mentioned that a program fund, and it's not anything we're looking to do right now, but I just want to make you aware of it. A program fund would pull these programs like contracted and camps and recreation programs in the end zone. It would pull them out and make it its own budget, its own set, and in turn, it would, the program fund would roll over each year. So if we made 50,000 in revenue, and we spent 40,000, that 10,000 would roll over for the next year to be used by the recreation department. And what the idea is, people who are paying to play, to recreate, to be educated, their money stays in programs to enhance the programming and stuff like that. Actually, this didn't change, but the special events at 17.5, we have no revenue coming into that. But that would be a program that would go over as well, because it is a program, the Independence Day celebration and such, and any other special events, that money would be used to enhance those programs and to bring in other ones as well. So that's it. On the transmittal letter, it says program fund. That's what that's about. It would, again, take out all of those program things that have to do with programs and pull them into an account that rolls over.
Todd approached me with that idea, and I ran it by the town attorney to see if we could establish kind of a special revenue fund. That way, if you need voter approval, and the town attorney said you didn't, but I wasn't ready to make that recommended change structurally in the general fund right now. I told Todd, I think we'll think about it over the next several months, maybe anticipation of next budget year, but just kind of thinking out some of the mechanics there a bit. But essentially, you would be removing these expenses and their revenues from the general fund and into that program fund for recreation. So something we'll talk to Todd about, that we'll think more about and see how that would function structurally for us.
Good.
So I just bring it up to you at this time, just to kind of give you a heads up that it's something that we would like to look at and work on, and we would do that with Eric going forward. So the operating side of park services, the salaries has gone up, and I would turn to Shirley and just ask, there's no change to the part-time seasonal?
Right.
Okay, so we have a part-time seasonal park maintenance staff, which I hire, and then a full-time buildings and grounds out of Bruce's budget, a person physically comes into parks and works for us with that part-time person. So the increase is that full-time building and grounds person's salary and such. And there's no change.
COLA and merit, yep.
Yeah, so there's no change to the part-time seasonal, which is 30 hours a week for 30 weeks at about $20, I think.
Yeah, I forget what I
So-
put in the budget.
So, and then park admin salary is mine. And one of the other things that I've discussed with Shirley and Eric is kind of taking this and just making an administrative line item that's like my whole salary, rather than split it between parks, because it's all coming out of the same place. But that is that increase. Benefits, of course, increase because of those upper two. Equipment rental review goes down a little bit, and that was because during COVID, we were using a lot of portalettes. So we just kind of adjusted that to what our needs are now. We put 4 portalettes and 3 of the parks and over by the Babe Ruth field behind the school. And then in the wintertime now, we're putting 1 at Village Community Park, because there's still a lot of walkers and they rely on that. And also we have a skating rink. So it's handy to have that there as well. And then utilities went down quite a bit, because we didn't use any water in the irrigation at Allenbrook, didn't need to. And
That's true.
didn't need to. And then the other big increase is athletic field maintenance. Last year, we took the park maintenance and upgrades and separated athletic field maintenance because they were kind of two different things, and we're using the money from rentals of park facilities, so fields, courts, and amenities like that. So I asked last year that we make a separate revenue, and we always had a revenue, field use fees, but make a separate expense for that. And last year we had it set for 20,000, we spent 17, and we made like 24. And then going into this year, we're already at the 17, 18 mark, and we haven't got the spring revenue yet. So that's kind of, I see this one kind of like the contracted one where, you know, I'm gonna spend as much as I can of that, maybe go over this expense, but not go over the revenue that we bring in. And again, on the transmittal, and I'll bring this up to you now, I also asked Eric if we could look at taking the field use fees and changing that to an athletic field courts and making it like the program fund that it would roll over. So basically what we're saying is the people who are renting fields and court, their money is staying into improving, restoring, whatever the case may be, the fields and courts for them. And it would enable us to move some things out of the capital budget, you know, like buying soccer goals. I would make it part of this because the soccer goals are being used by those people. And the general public residents anytime can use a field, no fee attached. They can use the goals, but the wear and tear is going to be the club, rec soccer, and the adult soccer that goes on, and that kind of stuff. And right now, all of our rec soccer programs, lacrosse programs, and any of the sports camps in the summertime, 20% of the I didn't raise registration fees. 20% of the registration fee for any rec program that's using field or court space is being diverted to the field use fees fund. So even rec programs, rec users are part of their registration fee is going towards that athletic field fund. So if we could roll that over and you know, use that money or build that account up, then there's projects that we could do that we were not asking in capital or the operating fund or taxpayers to pay for, because both the program fund and this athletic field fund, I like to say you pay to play. So we're taking your money and we're reinvesting it into the areas that you're doing, sort of thing. And again, that's nothing that's affecting this budget, but just something that we're on the table, we're talking about, and you could see in the future. So that is our operating budget for recreation parks. And I think there's an increase of 60,000 from what I can see. Am I seeing that correctly?
Yep.
60,000, and like I said, you know, 42 of that is the rec zone, but 5 of that we've taken away. So I also tried to move money around and put it in different places. But ultimately, our history has been we bring in more money than we expend out, sort of thing.
Any questions on the operating budget from the board? Okay.
Capital for the rec department, I'm gonna jump right to parks improvement, page 43.
We'll save that one for last time.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, let's say it the
We'll
best.
save the big one.
Say the best. Or, yeah, or the most expensive big one, however you want to look at it. A few years back, instead of coming and share this for the new members of the select board, a few years back, I proposed having a parks improvement and parks replacement capital fund, and every year just putting 20,000 or 25,000 in it each year, and that those funds would build up, and we would have different projects that we would, see that a need of and look to do. So the parks improvement, we're looking for 20,000, and that is for the next 3 years, and then jump it up to 25,000. And 10,000 of that is coming from the general fund, and 10,000 from impact. And park improvements has done things. What you have is just from like 24 going forward, but if we expanded that, we would see that. Well, actually, the ice rink was made with that hands-free restroom that happened during COVID. We put in basketball hoops. We've put in picnic shelters. So we've done a lot to improve the parks and add things that we felt were not necessary but needed, and also things that people could use. In 25, both in the parks replacement and the parks improvement, there isn't a lot being asked for expenditure, and 2 reasons for that is ARPA funds, that we have asked for some things, and the Recreation Parks Committee asked for some things through the ARPA fund. So if we get that, those will be done. If not, then we can build that in later. Also, the work at Allenbrook, which we'll talk about, we wanted to leave some money towards that. I had 5,000 in this year's budget, 24 budget, but I moved it to 25. And that is to add some amenities to the top playgrounds, which we have one at Village Community Park, and we have one at Brennan. And it may be that, looking at a couple different things at this point in time, there's some handicap swings, which we don't have in the public parks. There's one at Williston Community Park over at behind the Central School. But there's also swings that an adult could be on one side and the child could be on the other side, and they could swing together rather than standing behind and pushing. So this is something we're looking at to make that an improvement into the parks. The other is the parks replacement, and that's $20,000 this year. Then it increases to 25. And again, you see a long list of listing of parks and a long list of different things that are in those parks. We didn't put anything in for 25. The funds are a little low, and we want to build them back up, but also ARPA money. And the one thing that should be done is in Village Community Park. You can see I have it in 26. We should look at repaving that lot, restriping it. There's a couple areas where the white fence is, we have an opening. So if we build bridges or culverts through that swale area. Also, the Energy Committee Melinda is working on EV charging stations over there. So it's oh, and then parking is an issue, that they're parking along the roadway, which is enabling or not able for fire, EMS, and police services to get down that way. So we really need to look at all that as a whole. So these are our 2 parks capitals, and instead of coming to you and saying, hey, we would like $100,000 to do this project and so on and so forth, we asked just for $20,000 or $25,000 each year to build that fund up and to do those projects as we can, sort of thing. The other thing,
If I could just for a second, what we typically do by having this list too, it enables, sometimes we might be planning to do a project one year, but we find, we really need to do this other project sooner than that. So by having that identified in the fund, it gives some flexibility for staff to change the order and not have to amend the whole capital plan at that point.
If you go back to page 44 for a second, the parks improvement, up above Village Community Park is Recreational Parks Master Plan. It's something within the last couple of weeks that Eric and I have talked about, and he placed hold 30,000. We'll need a little bit more than that, according to, but the town just finished, as you know, a scoping study for indoor recreation programs and facilities. We have the improvements, so everything that we've built, we're looking to improve or replace. And then we have this improvement fund, and it's kind of been these little things that I think, or I've heard, but now we're moving into larger things like courts at Brennan, a basketball court, a tennis court, pickleball court. We've had this ask for a rebound court, which is kind of like hitting a tennis ball up against plywood and to come back. So you just play on your own. And they want us to do that on our existing courts. And it's, we're saying, oh, if someone's playing and if you're doing that and someone wants to come and play and that kind of thing. So Rosenau currently has basketball courts, tennis court, pickleball courts, and it has a hard surface play area. So making Brennan similar to Rosenau would be great. As Mountain View Drive is growing up, the golf course right next door to the park, that development, the paper the other day had the development just a little bit further down the road near the meditation place. So all of that's growing up. And people say to us, what about Brennan Woods? Well, they can use that park, but they have their own amenities, I think a pool and a tennis court as well. But that area is growing up. So making Rosenau and Brennan look the same, that's $400,000 to $500,000. This $20,000 a year, it means, 10 or 20 years of looking to do that. So we're definitely looking at more expensive projects as we move forward. So the Recreation and Parks Master Plan would focus on that outdoor recreation piece. What is people looking for outdoor recreation? We've heard dog park, rebound, another disc golf, and all these different things. So this plan would help us to identify those, incorporate the indoor facilities into that, and also look at the department, how the department has to grow. You asked the question the other day about, teen programming and having a place would be great, but we also need to have a person. So growing that, and the library has said, well, we get teens that come over, they have a staff, I don't know how many, but it's more than the 2 that we have, sort of thing. So this plan would just help to develop and give a guidance to the growth of the department moving forward. And ultimately, when my time is done here, I would like to leave a plan for the next person so they don't have to come in and figure out what's next, what do I do? I spent the first 5 years doing that, and now I'm spending the next 5 years making it happen, right? Sort of a thing. So that's that. If you see that there, that's what that's about. Did you add that to the ARPA?
Yeah, so
possibly.
I sent out to the board yesterday an updated ARPA kind of scoring rubric, and there's 2 new projects. This is the first one. They're both parks related. So the number for that Todd got just this week was more in the $70,000 range for that master plan. So I suggested as part of the ARPA, maybe splitting it half with ARPA and half we could draw from these capital savings funds. The other component of this, I think I mentioned earlier, with re-upping the rec impact fee, that master plan will be critical to identify the projects to base the fee on. So it's a good prerequisite for the impact fee as well, to really identify what those are going to be to define that scope in the next year and a half here.
I don't know what that study master plan development would look like, but I don't know if the community's ready for another survey.
Right. we could certainly time it too, for maybe a year from now or something like that, before we get too far into the rec impact fee. If we're going to do it later in 25 or something. But that's a good point. You don't want outreach fatigue with all this.
Yeah. And it feels also, it feels like, oh, well, what are we made of money? There, the town's asking us what we want for this, what we want for this, what we want for this. Who's paying for all this? So it just, yeah,
Sure.
maybe take a little breather. I'm
Yeah,
just
and
trying to think of how you could spend $70,000 putting together a report like this unless you're doing a lot of public outreach.
Yeah. Yeah, you had Todd had gotten the number from a firm that we've used in the past, to give us kind of a baseline before we would bid this out, obviously, but to get a budget number. Ties well into the town plan work too. I'll make that plug as well.
I think tied into the Brennan Park, just tie in how do you get there? If there's no rec path on Mountain View.
Sidewalk.
There's no sidewalk on Mountain View.
Oh, Mountain View. That's correct.
That's always been the downside to that park for me. You can't get there unless you live in Brennan Woods. So, or
Like-
drive.
I
Right.
biked there before on the streets. Yeah.
But would you, I mean, you're trying to, if you're trying to put this in place because we're now going to build another 200 houses on Mountain View, that's sort of the impetus for improving that park. Well, then you have to kind of get there. So that's a conundrum.
We have on Mountain View as the Circ Alternatives project, phase 3 project. It's not funded by the state yet, but it's creating additional facilities on Mountain View. I think what they decided was a widening of the road and not the off-site recreation path. But at some point, we're hoping money will be allocated from the state through the Transportation Improvement Program, federal money that flows through V-Trans that's then allocated out. But I don't have a good sense of when that's going to be. It's also like the Exit 12 improvements are part of that Circ Alternatives phase 2 as well. So at some point we'll have funding from the federal level to improve Mountain View Road, but I won't dare guess when that.
Oh, I know. The other day when you said, or somebody mentioned that the bond for the sidewalk, the rec path bond is sunsetting. Is almost done. It's like we've been talking that stretch along Mountain View was on the short list, but was below the line. We couldn't fund it. So
Yeah.
that's been at least that long. We've been trying to figure that one out.
Yeah.
On page 71 is the equipment fund for the park, and we have a parks tractor and mowers replacement. And there's 9,500 there for those three. And I think they're on a 6-year cycle for replacing. As Bruce had mentioned, we are part of the grant to look at a zero-turn mower. However, we would not give up our 60-inch mower that you see on here, both in the future, because parks are growing and we'll need that. Though if the zero turn works out, then when we go to replace that 60-inch mower, we would look at zero turns. So we would have two zero turn 60-inch mowers. And at this time, they're not creating a 72-inch mower, which we use for our athletic fields, because they're larger in size and they cut more and that kind of thing. So we would add the zero turn to our fleet and then possibly look to trade it at another zero turn if it works out. And then the recreation pickup truck replacement. Actually, at this point in time, that's not replacement. It's actually getting one. Ours, as you know, was in an accident last March, and we've been without one since then. We hear it's in production. I don't know how long that means, but we will be in need of a pickup truck January 3rd for the ski and ride program. So I think Public Works will work with us on that. We did check locally and actually throughout New England to see what was available, and this is the truck that we would be getting from the state. This is the truck locally, a lesser truck if we bought one locally, and it would still be more than the state bid type of thing. So it wasn't feasible or prudent in spending the taxpayers' money to get something less than and still cost us more than as well. Sort of thing. And then you see the third one there is the Parks Field lining robot, It's not on the capital budget for 25. A placeholder has been put in there for 26. We're asking through ARPA money for a field lining robot. And a field lining robot basically goes out and lines the field. So manpower wise, you don't have somebody having to walk. When we do 5 fields out here at Village Community Park, one person to, well, 2 people to settle those is about an 8-hour day. One person to go and line with them after they've already been lined is about 2.5 hours. A robot is a lot less than that. It uses less paint, and the lines are actually very clear, very precise, very, and you know, we're a recreation department, I understand that, but very professional looking. It's electric, so we're moving towards that electric rather than, we had a gas powered one, we have a CO2 one, sort of things. And while the robot is lining this field, a person watching that could be mowing these other 2 fields where the robot would then move over to. So it's like having another person who can do our lining for us, sort of thing.
I have to tell you, I thought that was so cool. I sent it to Tom Mungeon at the high school, the maintenance guy at the high school. That it'd be great if we could figure out how to share it, because we mostly line during the school year and you have to keep up with it in the summer. So I don't know. Yeah, 'cause it sounds really fun. I think it's like a great GPS control to get the lines right, make it fast, but that's a lot of money for lining fields.
Well, actually, I should point out that this is probably more than the initial cost would be. And there's a yearly service fee of like $1,600 or $1,700, which would come out of the athletic field rentals, which is the players, the people that are paying to play.
Right.
It would come out of that. So this is just the initial cost. And also when this if we're able to get this and this gets broken out, it would get broken out over a 8 to 10 year period where $38,000, let's say $40,000 was divided by 10 years. So it's $4,000 a year. So it looks like a big price now, yes, but that's to purchase it outright. And then the final is on page 42, which is Allenbrook Community Park. And a revitalization was done of the park in spring of 22. So we have a preferred concept plan of that. And we put out an RFQ. We're looking to award that RFQ for engineering designs and phase 1 construction plans and the bid package. And that would probably that's looking to be about $200,000, which could come out of the 850 that's on there. But we're also considering a grant that would, it's called VOREC, Vermont Outdoor Recreation, and that could help with that as well. And in turn, we would hope to be able to start construction at Allenbrook in 25 or 26 moving forward.
Yeah, so this sheet on page 42, we need to do some updates because a lot's happened the last couple of weeks here with more information. So what we have in prepared to make this award, the current capital savings account has, like $240,000 in it or so. And then we have these recreation impact fees that we haven't allocated that are available to use for the park. So when we look at all money available, including rec impact fees, it's just over $700,000. So as we work through this with trying to figure out first what the engineering costs are going to be, and now we have a number after the bids came in. Our intent here is to award that contract. We have money in this capital savings account to do that. And then as the engineers work, we're going to task them with designing the park build out and then focusing on how to phase it. So then we'll know, the first phase is going to be infrastructure, parking, stormwater work, maybe some initial underground utility work. As we have the phases lined out, what the construction estimates are, then we can understand how we're going to approach it and basically see how much money we have of how to approach that. So whatever's remaining in this account after we do the engineering, and if we get any grant money to help us with that, that's going to help us design that first phase of construction. So that would be the plan from here, is to get this park build out finally happening, but understand what that cost's going to be and how we're going to phase it in. And that's why I added this to your ARPA sheet as well, thinking about these numbers. We know it's going to be a project that's multi-millions of dollars over a number of years here to build out that park. So if we get the grant, great, from the state, but if we don't, we're going to be spending more money out of here for the engineering, and it's going to decrease the amount we have available for initial phase of construction. Any additional ARPA money into here would help expand that initial phase once we see what the cost numbers start to look like.
And that initial phase, just, we haven't figured out what it is yet, but it would be the infrastructure of that phase as well as leading to other phases, so that we're not going back and tearing something up that we've already
Right.
built up and spent money on, as well as a dedicated road and parking for the park compared to using Allen Brooks Schools, which is what we're currently using, their entrance and parking. The area or the distance from the parking lot to where our two fields, multi-purpose fields are right now is probably about 500 feet. And once you get off the path, there's no accessibility. So parking lot would put accessibility closer to park amenities and such, and it would also separate the school and the park, which is a concern at Williston Central School and the Village Community Park at around 8 o'clock in the morning, and 1, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, the early dismissal, and regular one. The library, the park, and the school all at the same time adds a lot of parking. It doesn't last very long, which is a good thing, but it does add a lot of parking, stuff like that. So we've learned from this, and it's worked out great, and there'll be some things that we carry over into Allenbrook Park, but there would be some things that we would want to do differently as well.
Yeah, and the school district's certainly a partner in this. We engaged them as we did the revitalized master plan there as well. And, we plan to, I'll be sending them a note, because we talked about this was coming, so we'll be in communication about what that engineering looks like and working on the property and making sure everything's aligned and everyone's communicating well with as we design this plan.
That's all I have. Actually, if I could just say one other thing, just to Gene, to your comment about the robot and line, we'd be happy to work with the school, but we line fields spring, summer, and fall.
Yeah, I know.
We have soccer, 5 fields out here, plus lacrosse, 3 fields, and then also all the baseball fields and softball fields for the school, and in the fall, the soccer for the school.
Yeah, I know it's not exactly in line.
So, yeah.
You're not doing
But
24/7.
for other people, just for other people on the board to know that, yeah, we're busy from May 1st to November 1st and beyond. In the parks, that is.
Currently, the only access to the Allenbrook Park is by car, correct?
No, there's a rec path that goes from Coyote Lane to Talcott Road, and it runs through the park and through the school land.
So somebody from like Brennan Woods could also get over to Coyote Lane and,
Yep, and there's actually, you can go from North Williston Road, the Federated Church parking lot, all the way to Talcott, either walking or biking. You do the path through the park, and then there's little signs. They're not well established, but you go through South Ridge, and you connect that Cody Run or Cody Lane onto the bike path again, and go through Allenbrook, and you end up out of Talcott. So there's a way to get from one end of town to the other without having to travel on 2A. It's not straight, It's not, all path, it's sidewalk or path, it's a mixture, but it is a way that people can get from one side.
Well, I don't, yeah, because of my location, I don't ever use those parks, but I'm just sitting here trying to think, how would you go from point A to point B?
It's a really heavily used pathway
Goes
between
by
the
my
two
house.
schools, and like lots of kids travel to school every day that way, coming from those neighborhoods. And that's why I think one of the, I want to say, the Energy Committee maybe, and a couple of the committees had suggested putting better signage and right of ways and things like that for those areas to make that an easier bike and walkable commute.
Yeah, and we have those directions and map on the recreation website for people to access and find and utilize. Because right now, it's not well signed. It could be better signed. And I think the Energy Committee also talked about doing a bike path lane, like on a roadway, like you would see if you went to Burlington. There's a roadway, but a dedicated, bikes have the right of way type of thing through that. So those would be great to do for people using it.
Other questions for Todd? Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Informative. General administration.
Ooh, so we've been waiting for this one.
So there's a number of subcategories here, so maybe a particular order we want to take it, but perhaps having Shirley do the finance department budget first.
So in the finance budget, bottom line is oops, here, I'll do this, Scott. Our budget has changed by less than $500 between the 2 years. I'll start with the listers. The probably biggest change in the listers budget is our assistant assessor is looking to retire this year. And we have the administrative assistant, Michaela, who, when we hired her, we knew that Dick was probably going to be announcing his retirement. So she actually is an appraiser as well as working in the assessor's office. So she will step up and go to 28 hours a week from her current 16 hours a week. So we will actually be one person less in the office, but that is the plan, and the plan is for her to work more with Bill Hinman, our contracted assessor, to continue to educate her and teach her more. And our vision is that will become a full-time position, a one-person full-time office. Other than that, the contracted assessor rates went up, but really by the same amount as COLA. In finance department, that's just a matter of reflecting COLA and merit. We also, Aaron was in our budget, 50% in the finance budget, 50% in the town manager budget. She's now in the FY25 budget, 100% in the town manager budget. We also have our part-time, our assistant treasurer / finance assistant at 25 hours a week in this budget. Let's see. And again, those increases are offset by the fact, and that's why we really don't have much of a change in our budget, but offset by the fact that those buildings and grounds allocations are no longer in finance anymore. And we never allocated any of it to the listers anyways. It was just finance, the clerk, and the manager's office.
So, go ahead.
I assume this is where an HR director would be budgeted in, and yeah.
Well, I think that'll come as a discussion at the end. So it's not in here right now.
Well, it's not
at all.
right, but it would, theoretically, this is where it would go.
Either that or under it'll be a separate department, actually.
Yeah,
Okay.
it probably
Yep.
puts up the part.
So we'd pull out all of the, okay.
Yep.
So I thought I heard you say that Erin was 50% here and now she's 0% here. So why'd the budget go salaries go up?
We increase, part of it is just COLA merit, and we increased the hours for the assistant treasurer and the finance assistant, now working 25 hours a week. So we increased those hours just a little bit.
10% increase in the salary as it stands here. I
So,
don't know how much you took out for Aaron, but
yeah, oh, I'm sorry. The other piece is, so, on that project list is those allocations that we need to get to some time study to for water, sewer, stormwater. So in FY '24, we have that assistant treasurer, finance assistant at 45%, so 15% to each of those. And in this budget, I moved her down to maybe 4%, because most of, just in the short time she's been here, most of her receipting is really the thing that it pertains to water, sewer, stormwater. Most other things are projects for me. They're related to the treasurer function. She's being trained to be the backup for AP. So that 15% allocation was way too high. So I brought it down significantly to reflect on an actual basis more what that assistant treasurer, finance assistant is actually doing. So that's actually probably the bigger part of the change there, is really that change in the reallocation.
okay, thanks.
That's it.
That's for operating.
That's it for me.
Is there capital for you?
I have no capital.
Stapler?
$5,000 stapler?
ATM.
Yeah, yeah. I guess, the only other thing we were looking at is Nemrick, who is the software that we use. I went to a training, they had a seminar the other day, and it was really on AP and payroll year end. But I think you heard Aaron talking about moving to the cloud. So they have Nemrick in the cloud. And really, we own Nemrick software, and now we just pay an annual maintenance fee. But when time allows, would really like to pursue Nemrick in the cloud. I mean, just number one, it takes the liability off us of having information on our server.
Right.
It's more secure in the cloud. It also offers some other advantages in terms of when we're working from home, how we can connect to it. It will reduce the cost. So right now, for Lynn and I to work from home, we use a different way to access than when Eric works. And it costs a lot more, and we have to pay for, I think, 25 minimum users, even though it's primarily Lynn and I. So, so there are some benefits in just how we can utilize Nemrick right now because of the way it runs on our server. It really limits how effective Lynn and I work at home, because you can only have one screen, so you're flipping back and forth a lot. So, so in my budget, I actually have 2,000, and I think it's called like payroll software, which we'd like to go to on-time reporting, but again, we haven't. So I'm going to pursue getting some information on the change to Nemrick in the cloud, and maybe those dollars will cover it in the FY25 budget. But if not, we'll see when we come back for version in January if we have some changes, but that is definitely the way for us to move forward.
It's the securities, taking it off of the server sitting here is huge. You get
Yeah,
hacked,
absolutely.
It's gonna cost you a fortune to take care of that, so, yeah.
Absolutely. And not only that, then they maintain, I mean, your data. So that was one of my questions. What about retention? I mean, it's that they don't, there's no cutoff with retention. It's going to be out there, so we have access to our data for as long as we've been on Nemrick. So, and I guess I'll just mention quickly, because Jack wanted to know if he needed to come to the meeting to talk about the cemetery budget. So I am on page 149.
Shirley can handle this.
Yep. Yeah, there is not a big increase, but the real increase is in the professional services line of 3,000, which, Bruce reached out and got an estimate for us. But that is really the cemetery maintenance, the mowing and the weed whacking of the cemetery, which has been going up annually. So that's just a small increase for it.
Like, there's no other questions. I can jump to general administration tab.
Sure. Yep.
This one has a number of sub-items, so I can give a quick overview. So we have the general overhead, select board, technology, and town manager's office. General overhead, primarily you see the move reflected for the buildings and grounds, taking it out of custodial services and rolling it into there. This also has things like legal services. We increased that a little bit based on prior years. Certainly a couple union contracts have played into some of that cost, and just a number of things we've worked through on a legal end. It's that seems to be a good number year to year. Will fluctuate depending on needs, but we bumped that up a little bit for next year. Select board, your budgets, not a lot of change. We do a COLA for the select board stipend, and the regular expenses that includes things like town meeting TV, recording secretary, things of that nature. Bigger increase in our technology line, so it's like computer applications, things driving that. We use a managed services contract to manage all our IT needs, so we don't have an in-house IT staff person. We use an external source. We've been doing that about 5 years now. It's worked very well. They've had some costs that have gone up the last couple of years. They didn't increase their fees at all during the pandemic, which was great, and they gave us a lot of in-kind support for remote work, so they've been certainly a good partner for us. It's a per workstation contract. So we've also had a couple new employees, a couple new workstations, so that factors in there. Our website hosting, we need to do a new contract. We had a pretty good deal on this before, but our company got bought out, and we are in the process right now of updating our website to a new template from the circa 2009 website template that's there. This will be Aaron Dickinson's leading that project with a staff lead group. So we hope to roll that out in the spring sometime. So we had some added costs there with that new contract we entered into. And then additionally with technology, certainly protecting our data from a cybersecurity standpoint is immensely important. We're looking to roll out some new tools with two-factor authentication that's been recommended by our provider, and continue those remote work tools that Shirley mentioned. So it's certainly something that continues, drives what we do here every day, and it's good investment in it for security and operational standpoint. That's where that number is being driven from. Town manager's office budget, some changes reflective of the new manager's contract extension, bringing the staff salary back into just the manager's office. Also, the benefits reflect that. A little bit more on training and conferences. I haven't gone to the International City Managers Association National Conference. I'd like to start doing that when I can, so I'm hoping to go to that next year. It's in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so I put a little extra money in there for just travel and going to that.
This isn't related to having a new baby at home, is it?
Yeah, that's why I didn't go this year.
Yeah.
So that's my wife. Not this year, but next year. Rick McGuire always spoke highly of going to those conferences. So it's a good professional development that I'd like to take advantage of. That's the general administration. If there's any questions from the board on.
What was the big bump in 23 for professional services under select board? Like $30,000?
It was removal of the Tetro trailer. We just didn't have it, but, it was a piece of property that we went to tax sale and then found out that we actually owned it. And then we had to just rip it out.
Got it.
So it was, that's 30,000 of it was that.
Yeah.
Did you guys enjoy doing that for 30,000?
Yeah.
Things you learn. Oh, we actually
Yeah.
own that.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for either Eric or Shirley? No?
I'll go to the outside services tab
Yeah.
next.
Yeah.
These are all mainly external entities, with the exception of, this is where our environmental reserve fund transfer lives, along with, we put some seed money into affordable housing trust.
Wait, I gotta find this one. Where's this tab?
Oh, sorry. Go to page 90.
Yeah.
Take it.
Thanks. Got it. Services.
So these,
Say, sorry, didn't wreck your flow.
oh, that's okay. That's where you have the ERF and the other affordable housing trust. I didn't put anything in the affordable housing trust. I was thinking the committee's really getting going. We're going to potentially see some money there from the payment in lieu of provision. But I think as they bring to you a proposal of how to use this money and how to grow it, we'll certainly have a more kind of robust methodology to think about that into the future. So we didn't have anything there last year either, as we were scaling back and kind of waiting to see what the next steps were. Then we have these categories: health, our health officer stipends in there, visiting nurses association, the town pays for their services every year, some general health, employee health and safety programs. We've done a lot of wellness stuff out of that, some lunches for staff, things to support staff from just an overall organizational standpoint. Looking for main variances here, I don't think we have the county tax bill yet, so that's an estimate that, right, Shirley, that could change.
Correct.
Always goes up. Then just from outside groups who are part of Regional Planning Commission, member of that, from League of Cities and Towns. Those increases aren't huge. Lake Iroquois Association, we'll have them scheduled to speak to you. They've requested, I think they request about 15,000 each year. I've put in 10 the last couple of years. So you can have that conversation with them where you want to land on that number. Our social services organizations, you have a committee that gets those requests and allocates those funds. A number of local nonprofits that make requests, and then this money that's in the budget, the select board tasks that committee with allocating for those requests. I know they've certainly gotten a lot of requests the last few years, which exceed the amount of money that's allocated. Given that I gave it a small increase of a couple $1,000s, but there's certainly a lot of need there. Community partnerships include things like the town band, used to be in the rec department, and comes out of this budget now. Very small increase there. The largest increase we're seeing is transportation. That's Green Mountain Transit being a member of that entity. We're also part of the ADA program and the Elderly and Disabled Transportation Program. I did email their CFO to ask why the big jump in the ADA allocation of $18,000, and pulling it up, I recall it's mainly driven by use. So we're seeing it's based on the number of users.
I remember, I think they came and talked to us like one of my very first meetings, and then they were going away from use and going towards population, which I remember saying that. So maybe they haven't pulled that trigger yet, but I can't believe our use has gone up that much.
Can find. I'll find the email from him because I asked him that.
Yeah, she said it was based upon population, not use, right?
So they wanted to go to population, not use, but I thought put us at a huge disadvantage. And
That may be just a general number, the $230,000 for the bus line itself.
okay, so maybe they didn't change that, which is why it's relatively flat.
Yeah.
That would make more sense.
I'm planning to ask them to come in January because this is certainly a larger variance, and we typically have them come once a year so they would be good to answer those questions about their assessments of the town there. I point that out as the larger one within this budget.
What's clock winding?
So we have a town clock winder. We have a town clock. It's in the steeple of the Federated Church.
We own the clock in the church?
We own the clock.
What
we
the
own
hell
the
is separation of church and state?
We own the clock, and we when the church steeple was replaced, the clock stayed in there. We pay someone, Bill White, who passed away a couple of years ago. He that clock needs to be wound a couple times a week. So we have a stationary bicycle that uses a counterweight of a box of rocks, and someone has to ride the bicycle to pull the counterweight and keep the clock running. So we pay Brian.
That's really got to be part of whatever your Williston thing is. Your
Yeah,
Williston.
I did a video about it a few years
Did
ago.
you? That's hysterical.
I interviewed Bill.
I still want to see it in person. All these.
Yeah.
Oh, you have it?
Yeah, we saw the
I
rest
want
of
to get
the
up there.
We'll arrange it. It's
It'd be like being in the Capitol Rotunda. I finally made it.
we do it at the Rotary Club some morning. It should be seen. It's good. And the board recognized Bill White for his service and named the clock room after him after he passed. We gave him a nice resolution.
Yep. Eric, what's the $1,000 for residents' assistance under social services?
Yeah, we typically use that. Shirley, you tend to manage if we get someone who might need some help in
Yep,
in some
someone
area.
who might have their electricity turned off, or
Okay,
they
yeah.
don't have money to pay a fuel bill.
Sure.
Then they give me permission to reach out to whoever, it's typically utilities, sometimes it's been rent. They'll give me permission to talk to the provider, so we can get the big picture before making a decision
Great.
about how much we're gonna help.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
SSTA, that must be in here too somewhere, isn't it?
Yep, that's
That's
part of
E&D.
transportation services. So that would be
Yeah.
the E and D transportation.
Yeah.
There's no other questions there. We're almost there. It's just the lightning round here. So you have a tab called Capital and Debt. It's right near the beginning here.
Whose nice handwriting is it? Yours, Shirley, or is it Aaron?
No,
Definitely not mine.
yeah. That was Samara, who is actually a teacher, and
Oh,
she
yeah.
worked for us the last 3 summers, so that was Samara.
So here, you'll see I'm on page 55. This is always a good schedule for the board to be aware of. It's our debt service. So you'll see all our outstanding debt items here and the payment. Point out new to this is, I think Shirley rolled we have 2 different ambulances that are rolled into the principal and interest payments. So the addition of the new ambulance this year that we're now paying off, you see that number jumped. Overall, as we have these bonds that are maturing, as the principal gets paid off, the interests are going down each year. So that contributes to a decrease in some of these lines. So I'd say we're in an overall, it's a good place in our debt schedule. I think we're just under 7% of our operating budget is debt. As we look forward the next couple years, we're going to start seeing those public safety buildings mature. On page 57, you'll see public safety principal and interest, the 3 bond series, maturity dates in 25, 26, and 27. So you see you add up those principal payments, it's $320,000. That will be mature as of FY28, with 165 of that maturing in FY26. So those start to come off our books along with the sidewalk bond. I believe that's about the same time too, in 26, as I recall.
I was going to say that if you go to the capital budget tab, page 11, you will actually see how those are rolling off. There's a 5-year amortization. It's much easier to see it there.
Yeah, that's the better look. Yeah, I like this chart. As the town thinks about any potential new bonds, if you were to decide to bond for part of the parking lot or Old Brick Church fire suppression or combination thereof, we'd have to put at least the first interest payment in here, so that would be in addition to the operating budget. We'd estimate what we thought the bond interest rate would be to budget for that, so that would be an add to the budget. On the capital side of the operating budget, so as you go through while you're here in capital, if you go to page 9 of capital, this is where we have everything in the capital budget with a revenue source attached to it. So the operating category is from the operating budget, so it's 505, 800. So those funds are transferred from the general fund to the capital fund. So this capital tab in the general fund, that reflects this money that's going into the capital fund from the general fund. That's how those would be tied together. I mentioned in previous years this column for fund balance, this 167,250. We would have that originate going assigned to the general fund, then transferred into the capital fund. So what we're suggesting this year is just to allocate it directly to the capital fund and not have it flow through the general fund. Before, in that capital tab, you'll see in the general fund, there was other movement of those fund balance dollars as well.
So do those not have to be approved by voters?
The select board can can assign them. And I ran this by our auditors, but I wanted to double check it with the town attorney. So I've sent him a note on that too, just to make sure, or we're set on that.
Yeah, that would be different than the school municipality, so.
Yeah, in the select board's policy, the select board can assign these funds as well.
Like during the year, well, okay. I
Yeah.
trust you. I trust you. It's just, yeah, we have to vote on them. If you're gonna assign money to a fund.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to double check our policy with the town attorney, make sure. We've tended to bake these things into the general fund every year that the voters approve that way.
Right, right.
So I just, I'll report back.
Yeah.
I always want to double check these things to be sure. So that is debt and capital.
Are there fund balance updates in here?
Yeah, that'd be the transmittal page.
14?
Page 14.
So Eric, while we're looking at that on page 14, it seems like if we had, tell me if I'm wrong about that, if we used fund balance as is being proposed to us now, we're still going to be we're going to be 16.3% of the operating.
Yep.
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 I was noticing the Government Finance Officer Association at the top of the page, not that I know exactly what that is recommending 2 months of operating expenses to be maintained in unrestricted fund balance. And
That's about 2.5, just a little over 2.5 million, Ted, when you look at that calculation.
This is the operating fund balance, though.
Correct.
There's all
Right.
sorts of other fund balances, impact fees and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Right.
And that, they're not in any of
Okay,
this.
that's what I was saying.
okay, I just want to make sure I understood.
Yep. Yeah, and this, when Shirley and I we started doing this exercise a few years ago with try to understand where this was going to land, trying to forecast it out 18 months or so. But it becomes a policy decision for you of how much do you want to use, and we've come into this pattern where we haven't had to touch it, but at some point it's not going to be there, and you want to keep a healthy reserve on hand for this one. The last piece is just the revenue budget. You've heard from most departments on their department revenue. I'm on page 37 right now. But I covered most of this in my overview on Tuesday night, but basically this is where we get the tax rate and the tax revenue, the local option tax as well, and all the details run through here. But the big overall is this initial budget has a 3.5 cent tax rate increase. The local option tax we're increasing by just over $500,000 based on the look back the last few years and applying a growth factor. We're starting to see, it used to be really 50% property, 25% local option tax, 25% everything else. That 25% of everything else, including fund balance, a little bit of ARPA, we're starting to take that down a little bit more, and that'll apply more of local option tax and property taxes. Starting to move that. And those are all the elements of your budget proposals to think about.
Okay. Questions for Eric before we? So there's no, this whole thing has been a manager's report all day.
Yeah.
So I think the next agenda in front of me, but the next thing would be, but are there any final thoughts on things that we've covered today?
Lots of them, but
Yeah,
a lot to consume in one day.
well. So we are going to reconvene on January 2nd. That will be a public hearing as well. Anyway, okay. Can I ask what people think of the first time we've done this on a Saturday as opposed to once a week, every week during December?
I think it's preferable.
Yeah, I do, too.
I was not looking forward to 6 hours, but it went very well.
Yeah.
Well, we have a very entertaining staff. It's not just education.
Well, I don't even know why you do it every night in December, but I know that even anytime, I'm more fresh this time of day than I am at 8 o'clock at night,
Yeah,
so
me too.
even if it was just that.
Okay, so, January 2nd,
6:30.
6:30?
Yeah, would that work
You know-
for everyone? 6:30 start on
Yeah.
January 2nd for executive session.
Yep.
You know, Ted, I was just going to add for Jean and Mike's information, when we come back in January, we'll actually have a list of revenue changes and expenditure changes as some of these numbers. We receive the county tax or we receive the final numbers from some of these things. So we will have some changes to these numbers you're looking at now.
Great. Everybody have a good rest of the month and happy holidays. We are adjourned.
Well,